Hello and welcome to today's authors. We're going to make good on our threat today to interview people who we think are the second meaning in the Webster's Dictionary of author, and that is people who make a big difference by being originators and idea makers. And Peter Young, Father Peter Young, is with us today. And if there isn't anybody in the whole world who doesn't fit this role better, I guess we'll just have to quit. It's great to see you.
Good to meet you.
Thanks for coming out.
Yeah, thank you.
I'd like to start out with one question about how you've gotten yourself into being sort of the go-to guy where addiction and alcoholism is concerned, and how you got started in New York State in the prison system. How did that work?
Well, in the late 50s, I was assigned to St. John's on Green Street, which was the combat zone of the Albany Tariff with the prostitution, with the drugs, and it was a feeling of this is an area, about a 12-block area, where they contained crime. So if they used drugs there, that'd be okay. But if you moved out of that one block one way or the other, then you would get cuffed. So I wound up being a pastor at St. John's for 18 years, and therefore I had in charge of what that turf would be. It was the combat zone, and I met a lot of the people. While there, I was also appointed jail chaplain to the Albany County Jail and as chaplain to the court. So I went to court every morning and met the people in court, and I would try to then talk with the judge and say, you know, this guy is just what they called a 24040. That was a public intoxication. I'd be happy to try to work with him, judge. And the judge was okay, and he'd line them up about 50 a day and say, do you want to go to jail? Do you want to go to father? Do you want to go to jail? Do you want to go to father? Okay, follow father out and bring him down. I had 14 buildings down in the parish. A lot of the people had moved out, and I had a chance to inherit a lot of the buildings in the South End at that time. And especially with our school closing, our other different programs closing, we had a lot of available space. So I said, I'll utilize the space. I put mattresses on the floor in the gym and took in about 80 or 120, and then more than that every night. So I just took those people that were homeless and put them into a situation where I'd go and beg for the food, for Freihofer at that time, and beg for the kind of produce that would get from the market. And we tried to get the guys doing a lot of their own kind of stuff. So sheltering people is where I started. And then seeing the need of those people that I had in my pocket, so to speak, I had a chance to try to find out what's wrong. Because at night they're falling apart and they're doing strange things with their own fits, seizures, DT, convulsions, things of that type. But then in the morning, I'd sit down and they would be trying to drink coffee, and I would say, you know, you're a nice guy, why? And they would talk, I don't know, I just felt the urge to have a drink, Father, I need a drink. And I would say, you know, therefore there's something medically going on. So in looking at that, I said, this is not a crime, it's a disease. Then I spent 14 years of my life trying, if I could, to prove it. And I had over 35,000 meetings, only about 3 miles away, less than 3 miles, really 1 mile and a quarter to the Capitol. So I said, I know where I'm going to make a change in this, I've got to go to the Capitol. And that's where I met Rocky and Governor Rockefeller and all of the people that were in agreement with me. And then the door opened where I got some chance to make a lot of things happen.
So you really had an impact on the Rockefeller drug laws. I mean, the things that have become sort of a legend, you know, like the New York State is seen as the wrong place to be caught, you know, doing drugs or whatever, but it's also, I think the underlying story is it's the best place, in a sense, because of the work that you've done to separate out the whole thing about the penal code of public intoxication.
Right. We did succeed in the penal code in the idea of the decriminalization. I often refer to as destigmatization, because it finally became what it is now. It's an illness, a disease, and therefore because of that now we're getting treatment. It's treatable and beatable. But at that time, the governor agreed with me. I was a chance at knowing Albany and knowing a few of the people. I knew his secretary and his program chief of staff. So I went up and had coffee with them, and they said, come on, let's go have lunch with the governor. And so I had lunch, and at that time he cut the crust off the sandwiches, and we'd have lunch with him, and he said, well, now how did you get interested in this? And I began to get a very friendly relationship with the governor. And the governor said, you know, you're right, I want to go and work with you. I'll give you a job here of free. I can't give you anything, but I'll give you a parking place next to my car. and that'll tell people what we think of you. So I got a parking place on the ramp,
hey, that's
right
important.
next to the governor,
That's
and
a great ramp.
it was something that helped because I could come in, do my thing, and get out. And it was an amazing thing. But I was there on January the 3rd, 1973, when the people came in and he made the announcement that he was running for national office. And he said, I'm running, I'm going in. And I was in the room, and they said, Governor, you're too soft on drugs. You're too soft on this heroin problem we have in Harlem. And the governor said, what do you think I should do? And the people said, you got to get tough on crime, you got to get tough on drugs. And that's when he then got advice of, well, we're going to lock them up. And he said, it might be a good idea. If I'm going to run for national office, I'll have to go with that agenda. And he came over and he apologized to me, after the meeting and after an opportunity of talking with him, because I did write the RDL 1, the Rockefeller Drug Law 1, which would be a law that would allow people to have a diversion program. If they admitted addiction, they could then go to court, admit addiction, and they would go into treatment. And that was down in Woodburn Correctional Facility. And then in '73, it became an entirely different thing. They cuffed people and put people in jail for their abuse and use of drugs.
So we were talking about, you got 41,000, there's 41,000 guys or something like that who were in the prison program and have come out. You call them your friends.
Right.
And you talked about how much you enjoy working in prison with these guys. Can you go into that? I mean, most people would say, why would you enjoy that?
Oh, I had a fine time. I was 18 years working on the street, working in the county, and then I was transferred. I tried to start a minority driving school, which the kind of people that were administrating where the field of transportation was at that time didn't agree. The unions and others were in total opposition because I knew that Selkirk was coming in as a program, a large distribution center, and the new law of '64 said if you're going to be driving rigs around and across state lines, then you have to have affirmative action. I said, here's an idea. I have all minorities in the locale that I'm in Green Street, in that south end of Albany, and they need to be employed, and therefore here's an opportunity for me. So I ridiculously bought tractor trailers. And with that, I got into a heavy debt, and the heavy debt got me into prison, because with the heavy debt, I got into it. They were dropping my transmissions at night. They were putting sugar in my gas tanks, and I wound up with junk. So they were keeping me out of the market, and therefore I lost the school, and I still had the payment that I had to make to pay off the rigs. So it turned out to be a bit of a disaster for me. It turned out to be a problem and a half, because now I've got a heavy bill, and I'm saying, they've often said, can you come in and be a chaplain in the Department of Corrections? And I said, maybe I can, because they pay you. They paid in the state. And I had to pay off these debts. So then I quickly volunteered to go into the prison system, the State Department of Corrections, to try to work with them. And they said, you've been doing a lot of this with addictions, and this is what a lot of these people have as they come through the truck trap into our jail, into our prison. So why don't you try to set up a program? And I did, and as a result of that, in due time, it gravitated into, when I retired, I had around 40-some thousand in the program that I was the founder of. So as a founder, I just take great pride in the idea of being able to be there, because when you see the need, you want to try to find a way to respond. It's a simple thing.
It's too bad more people don't feel that way. The three-legged stool, which you discovered at some point. I mean, the image certainly is pretty rock solid. How did you come up with that? Not only the idea, but that image. I mean, it sticks.
Right.
I've heard it used in so many different ways by business and politicians and people in show business. Like, you got to have this, or you have this stool fall down.
Well, it's simple, I think, for me, because I was there in prison, and every morning I'd walk in at the gate around 6:30 or 7, going between 6:30 and 7. I would meet the people that were leaving the prison to go back again to the community. And in meeting those people that were returning to the community, and I knew what the investment was that we had put in to try to train them for their opportunity of knowing the disease they had, they would meet me and they would be grateful and saying, thanks, Father, for the help. And then they would say, but I'm all dressed up and no place to go. And I'm saying, wow, that's interesting. And the more I heard that day after day after day, going in as these men would come out of the clothing room with their now polyesters on, going back out on the street, I would say, well, that's where I need to be. I need to get out of the prison system. I need to retire quickly and get out of here and go back on the street and try, if I can, to put together a program for community reintegration. And naturally they say, what do you need? Every time you talk with a guy coming out of prison, I need a place to stay, I need some treatment for whatever the kind of problem you think I have, and I need a job. So I said, you need three things: treatment, housing, and employment. And that's where it came from. I didn't come up with it. They gave it to me. They said this is what they need. So I saw the need, and I tried to find a way to respond to that need. Nothing really bright on my part. I'm not that smart.
Well, yeah. Well, what are you then?
Well, I'm persevering.
You refuse to quit, right?
I refuse to quit, yeah.
Yeah.
If I find a need, a legitimate need, I try to nail it, and I try to find out how to make it happen.
Now, where's that come from? That drive, that, you know, have you had that all your life?
I think it's been a Christian foundation that I've had, or a social need to try to find a feeling of helping other people. I think it's all of the Beatitudes. It's all of the idea of finding a way to serve other people. And it sort of makes me feel good when I see people, and I see them every day wherever I go now, that have said, I went through your program and thank you. I really feel good about that, because I meet an awful lot of folk, having been in this now for over 52 years. I've been able to see a lot of people, and they say that they've heard, or they've been in, or they've been involved in one of our phases of our programs. We have 118 sites in the state, from Buffalo to Brooklyn. So when I travel and go from program to program, I meet a lot of these people who say, hey, Father, I was with you in this prison or in that prison, and I was in your program, thanks. So it makes me feel good to feel that I've had a chance to be able to help people become a better kind of person.
And what kinds of things do these people do?
Well, that's where...
You got 118
locations,
and then I think a lot of people. This is off the screen for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't run into conversations where people are talking about the rehabilitated and the wonderful things they're doing. And your perspective on this is really is kind of beautiful, as far as I'm concerned. That you take people who really don't have much hope.
Right.
They're physically totally dependent on drugs and alcohol, and you clean them up and then get them from that outside the penal system into the community where they have to live and work.
Right.
Those two other legs on the stool are outside supervision.
Right.
So how do you get people to have that much faith in themselves to keep working at something, and then what do they do? I mean, what kinds of jobs are they doing?
Well, you're an educator, and you can see the value of being an educator to do an evaluation. I was blessed. The State University, the Criminal Justice Graduate School came in, and they did an appraisal of what we were doing in the prison system, and they found out that those that had a three-legged stool, the treatment, the housing, and the employment, were 92% successful, never being reincarcerated over a 10-year period. And I'm saying, wow, that's great, compared to 23% success. So I throw it back in the face of the people that I'm working with. Do you want to be a winner or a loser? And if you want to be a winner, this is the path you're going to have to take to work with us on getting treatment, safe, clean, affordable housing, and I have to get you a job. So I am very much involved in job development. Workforce development right now is where we're really at every day, and we don't hesitate to say that. It's more workforce development, trying, if I can, to find a job for the homeless, the addicted, and the criminal justice people. Those are the three categories of folk we work with. And we've been able to, here in Albany County, just in Albany, we've been able to show, by way of people that have been in this kind of path of receiving social services, to get them off of that. Our mission statement is to become a taxpayer. We have documentation, hard facts, that we've saved Albany County and the area here, Albany and Troy County areas, Schenectady, over $15 million of people, getting them off of the public dole to a job with the dignity of a paycheck. And that makes me feel good when I get them, because when they get that money, no one tells them how to spend it. They get a chance to be a little pride about who they are and what they are, and then I begin to look at them and say congratulations, and they're happy.
So you run into people in restaurants and businesses and
Yes.
things who went through your program and they have
All the time.
good jobs.
Yeah, we try to find a market. We try to find a way to get people, prepare them to be on time, to take orders, and to do the job in a kind of quality of care way. And it works because now we're offering people on the market, people that are clean and sober, that are willing to listen and take advice. So we prep them for that. That's a lot of our life skill training that we're doing at this time in a variety of places.
So does your program sort of coincide with AA? In
Very
some
much.
kind of way?
Yeah.
How's that work?
Well, it happened by way of my relationship with many of the people that I'd meet in court. I met lawyers who were in recovery in court, and they said, we'd like if we could volunteer. I was up in the court every day and meeting those lawyers. They said at night, we'd volunteer with you. And I said, oh, great. I was trying to get the volunteers to help. And they came down and they said, we want to give you an airplane ticket. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just housing people, trying to feed them and trying to get them into a safe spot. But I didn't know any philosophy of what really addiction was at that time. So they gave me an airplane ticket, and I was met then by the people in Ohio that I got a chance to go and to see, and they said, you'd learn something by taking advantage of this. And I met then with Bill Wilson, and I met with the people in the early movement of AA, and I met then a chance to work with, it's called a charity program, Rosary Hall in Charity Hospital in the area of Ohio, and I worked for Sister Ignatia on how to match the winners with those that were still in need of recovery. So I was basically working there as a matchmaker, trying, if I could, to say, it's a good thing if you can come on in and help this person who might need to be able to help them in their road to recovery.
Yeah, what is that phrase, each
one teach one?
Yeah, each one teach one. That's it, right?
Yeah,
it's like a mentoring thing.
Yeah, it's we're into mentoring right now. We're establishing mentoring with the haves to the have-nots, or to the idea of people that need skill. We have one of our psychologists and an entire staff for trying, if we can, to recruit mentors and mentees, so we can put them together where they can get the skills and the idea. It starts off with many of our things now. We're going into a lot of energy products, and for energy products, you need to have a little math head. A lot of our clients are 35 going on 20 because they have not been on the right road, or they've been unable to do what you're doing in college as a teacher in an academic world. They've lost it. They've forgotten how to do the math. So we're trying, if we can, to recruit volunteers to come in and teach these people so we can get them to pass the BPS test. It's a test for certification, and if they're going into energy and they're trying, if they can, to do an energy audit on an envelope of a room or a building, they have to figure it all out math-wise. So we're recruiting a lot of people that need then that kind of help, and then we find the people that will be able to help them, and we're getting a lot of college students now from Siena and from other colleges that are coming in volunteering, and a lot of adults too. A lot of retired professors are coming in who are helping us to set this up.
You're giving me that look.
A guilt trip.
I'll do it.
But I have to get them a job, and I have to make them competent to do the job. I can't put out there losers.
You're not
if I put one loser out, I'm going to lose any contact I have.
Yeah, it's amazing that what you're doing is so much more than what people think a priest would do. I mean, it goes beyond the spiritual thing. I mean, there's a loop there. I mean,
Yeah.
The spiritual aspect of it seems to me to be not only a goal, but it comes back around and it becomes part of the whole human being.
Yes. We're definitely a holistic kind of program.
And the thing about, people when they become desperate, and I interpret that from what I've been reading, is that the desperation becomes, you're messed up to the point where you really don't know if you're going to get through the day without your fix.
Yeah.
And what do you do after that? Well, if you get cut off from the ability to get your fix, then you become dangerous, right?
Yeah.
If you do whatever.
I have a DDD philosophy.
Yeah.
And you have a disease, then you get difficulties that go with the disease, and then you get desperate because of the disease, and then you get dangerous. And then, as an old guy over 80 now, I get bopped over the head on the street. So I'm trying, if I can, to be protective of the elderly. Because these guys that need drugs will be a predator out there.
Right.
Because they've got the disease. If they don't capably understand their disease and begin to become better people, they're going to have more difficulties, and those difficulties will lead a person to be desperate, and those desperate people will be dangerous to you and to I. I hate to say I can't run anymore, but maybe you still can.
A couple steps. That's the whole problem. You never know when you're going to get hit over the head.
Right.
You assume you're not thinking that, so you're easy prey.
But the percentages are the people that are going to be hitting over your head are drug-addicted people that need a fix.
That's interesting.
I hate to say that, but that's the reality of what stats are now.
When you, I want to go back to cycle all the way back around to when you first got the call, whatever that is. I mean, people, especially people in the clergy, are talking about getting the call. I was at a conference yesterday on our campus at St. Rose, and one of the guys on the panel was talking about we have a calling at this college, which makes us different from other colleges. And I tend to like turn things inside out. I'm thinking, okay, I got the call. What's the answer? You know, if you get a call and you don't have the answer, I mean, your life can just have no direction. And it seems like your biography has a straight line direction. It's like you got the call and you went there. Now, how did that all work for you? You made decisions as a young man which you didn't have to make.
Well,
you could have made some other ones, right?
Well, it's interesting because this is something, kind of private, but here's how it happened. I was in graduate school at Siena. I know that, that's our local college, and I was in graduate school, but I was at the same time in the Navy Reserve. And when the Korean conflict was going on, I got the call to report into active duty. I went into active duty, and I was assigned to a destroyer escort. And on a destroyer escort, we're going up and down the eastern, the coast here of the East, from South America back up through the Caribbean and back up to St. John's up in Newfoundland. And it was being on that ship that we were protecting the East Coast. And being on the ship, we'd pull in to get fuel or pull into the different ports in the Caribbean. And our guys, inappropriately, when they were drinking on liberty, they would abuse women. And I have no hesitation to say that we were the ugly Americans going into these poor native communities at that time. And that was in the early 50s, 53, and we were aboard ship and going into these ports, our guys on liberty would sexually attack many of these innocent women, and I was in pretty good shape at that time. I had an athletic scholarship through college, so I was in good shape, and I said, you can't do that. You can't disrespect that. And the guys that I would be correcting were my own shipmates, but I got into many a confrontation with them physically. And I came back aboard ship one night, and I'm sort of still bleeding from an encounter of trying, if I could, to disinhibit these men who were very motivated at that time. And the captain said, young man, I was on bridge duty, and he said, what happened to you? And I said, sir, the men were disrespecting the local women, sir, and I tried to stop them. And he said to me, you should be a chaplain. Now, again, I'd go back up on duty, on watch duty, again, night after night after night, and he would repeat, have you thought about that? Have you thought about being a chaplain? Sir, I'm sort of very happy. I've got the things pretty well planned. I've got a great job when I go back, and I've got a lovely lady that I'm in love with. And he said, you should be a chaplain, though. We need chaplains. We need chaplains. And that captain never gave up to me. He would remind me, and then he came up and he said, we're going back into the Brooklyn Navy Yard, 100 Church Street. When we get in there, I want you to go with me where you can apply to be a chaplain. And I said, sir, he said, I'll meet you at the gate and we'll go in and sign you up for the chaplain corps. So I didn't really make a decision.
That's interesting.
He sort of said, this is where you have to be. Now, the captain, when you're in the Navy, as a young guy, and you're saying, yes, sir, you say whatever the captain wants to hear. And I did. I said, well, gee, I've got to do this. This is what the captain wants me to do. So I paraded over there, signed up for chaplain services, or an application for chaplain services. And then the captain congratulated me, went back in, and I never saw the guy again. So I have no idea where he is or whatever happened to him, but he is the guy that put me in the path here to do this. He saw something in me that I guess maybe I appreciated, and I did what he told me to do. So I didn't get the call. I got the captain saying, young man,
That's really
this
interesting.
is where you have to be.
So you didn't get the call, you got the order.
I got the order. Yeah.
Or you got the voice of God through this guy. I mean, who knows, right?
I don't know how it happened, but I've been now doing the same thing for a long time and very happy that the captain told me to do it.
So it's turned out that the order turned out to be the call rather than the other way around.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
That's interesting.
That's the fact. It was through the Navy because at the same time I had an opportunity to get the Grapefruit League for the Cardinals, and I was interested in going into, because I had a promised tryout with the Cardinals in the baseball team, and I was very disappointed about being called into the Navy, but the Navy turned out to be the best bet. So I'm happy about that, looking back at it, because it's been an adventure.
Well, what's your next adventure? What are you going to do next?
I want to try to develop job opportunities for people, and we're housing around 3,500 people a night in these locations, and they're all in need of a job, and we're working with over 5,000 people a day. And thank God for email and all of that goes with it. But we need to develop a market. We need products that we can prepare people to do. We need our own workshops. We need our own kind of construction companies. We have a lot of those things. We do all of the state cooking. By way of their offices and everything, we do all of the state cleaning. We have all the contracts for state cleaning. And we do all of the idea of products. We do windows. We do, again, construction jobs. We do energy jobs. We're trying, if we can, to now work with energy panels and do all of that, and we do a lot. We're doing X-ray redevelopment and taking and using a lot of things that are now being wasted to recycle them into products. So we've got many industries now, but we need many more.
So you're also looking at the whole hierarchy or taxonomy of the bottom level job, but also
right up.
Management all the way to the top.
Yes. Yep.
Wow.
So we've got a convoluted kind of way, whatever the talent might be. We have a lot of screeners that'll tell us where the talent might be and what the talent might be of the people that we're treating right now in our life skill training programs. And then we try to get them on that path, a career path where they can feel good about themselves. So we do a little calling ourselves. We say, we think you can do this. We look at their energy level. We do a lot of job coaching and get an idea of where they need to be, where they can be able to be helpful to them and to their family or to whoever in society. We try to get them to be wounded healers. We have the wounded, and now they're wounded and they admit they have that wound, and we want them to be able to be the healers too of those that they'll meet on the road to recovery.
Seems to me we're all wounded
yes.
in our own ways. Thank you for being with us for this fantastic conversation, and I get to have more conversation after we're off, so watch us on today's authors on that streaming video, and if we manage to get a link from Father Young, check that out also. Thanks for being with us. See you soon.